Budget 2015. Among lot of expectations, our beloved FM Arun Jaitley yesterday presented his full-length budget after coming into power. For the benefit of the netizens of Tax India Online, we hereby bring a brief discussion about the pros and cons of this budget. Joining me, Mr. Natarajan, advocate, who is a very well-known name among all the netizens through his number of articles. He is joining me for the discussion on this union budget. Hi, Natarajan. See, yesterday we had our first budget, in fact, first true full-length budget of this government after coming into power. This came with so much of expectations that this will be the roadmap to GST, that this will be after their defeat in Delhi. A lot of expectations on this budget. Sincerely, how do you feel about this budget?
Overall, after reading the budget documents for quite some time, it's not very disappointing or anything. By and large, an attempt has been made to give the industry the much required help from the side of the government, and there is something for the common man, and especially we are known for our micro analysis of the taxation aspects. If you see the taxation aspects, I could find a lot of rationalization has been done as far as the penalty provisions are concerned. That I think it's a simplification measure. What do you feel?
Rationalization of penal measures, I still have my doubts. Section 80 of the Finance Act, which gave some discretionary powers to the adjudicating authority to waive the penalty, has been scrapped. Do you feel that this is a rational measure?
Even I felt so. On seeing the provisions that Section 80 was omitted, I also felt, oh my God, it has gone. But actually, if you see, the lot of measures which have been taken in under Section 76 and 78, where there is no penalty if you pay the tax within 30 days of show cause notice. Even in suppression cases, you can get away with a 15% penalty if you pay it within 30 days of the order. See, nowadays, even if you go to the settlement commission, you get hardly some 5 to 10% penalty. So a 15% penalty, which is quite possible, and of course the 25% penalty within 30 days if you pay. All these things, if you take a holistic look, by and large the harshness of the penalty has come down. Once the harshness has come down, there is no need for Section 80. Of course there has to be little penalty for those who don't pay the tax, is it not?
See, you are talking about the suppression cases. For the non-suppression cases also, where it could be a technical fault, where it could be a classification dispute, where there is an interpretational warfare. Now, with this present amendment, they have brought in a mandatory penalty, because it comes with a shall clause, of 10% or 5,000 rupees, which is going to be a predicament to even the technical cases. Suppression cases, I am with you definitely, because definitely a penal consequence is warranted on such cases. But for a non-suppression cases also, by bringing in this 10%, is it not that a penalty has been stretched to a non-penal and to a non-suppression cases also? Don't you feel so?
Yeah, there is a way of looking at it that way. You can also see it from the government's point of view that maybe the government feels if you want to litigate, you pay and litigate. And finally, if you win, you get back. That may be the aspect. I don't know really.
Okay, now coming to the other aspects of it. This budget is expected to be a clear roadmap for the GST which is going to come, or which is expected to be in place by 2016. Do you feel that this budget has laid down such a roadmap? Has a site formation has been done on that?
The target date for GST is 1st April 2006, hardly 1 year away. Lot more has to be done. So I was expecting at least a draft GST Act will be in place in this budget, so that the public will have an 1 year time to deliberate on it and come back with the suggestions. I was really expecting that a draft law will be in place, or at least the place of supply rules, which has already been talked about a lot, that will be in public domain. But nothing of that sort has happened. Even though a lot of things are talked about the GST, and which is just hardly an year away, if you see the provisions, the amendments, I don't think much headway has been made towards GST. It's all only remain on paper and words. In action, nothing has been done. See, the restrictions on SENVAT credit. Once you move towards the GST regime, there should not be any restriction on SENVAT credit. The government's attitude so long has been to restrict that 12% credit, forgetting a basic fact. If you have to get a 12 rupees credit, you have to spend 112 rupees. Nobody will spend 112 rupees just to gain 12 rupees credit. So that fundamental point has been missing for quite some time. This credit is not allowed, that credit is not allowed. That has been the attitude of the government. If some headway has been made on that front, allowing credit across the board, when like income tax, if any expenditure is done in connection with business, credit is allowed. If something like that has been done, we can really think that it is a move towards GST. But nothing of that sort has been there in the budget.
Do you feel that extending the 6 months time limit to the 1 year time limit for availment of SENVAT credit would be a liberal move on that?
What is the time limit all about? Why at all there should be a time limit? It is my money, I have paid the tax. Nobody is going to deliberately delay the taking of credit. So everybody would like to take the credit. So the delay is only due to some genuine reasons. Missing out some invoices, some documents are not able to be retrieved. These are all the genuine reasons for which a party is not availing the credit. For that, I think there should not have been any time limit.
But as an advocate, you would appreciate that there should be a limitation for any cause or any issue. There should be a limitation, otherwise it goes haywire. So I think there should also be a time limit for that, very reasonable, maybe with a leeway that if on a genuine cause it is demonstrated. For example, if the demand is cast on a later date, we are under the impression that there is no duty on a product, and subsequently after 5 years on an interpretation it comes to light that it is dutiable. That time this availment of 1 year or 6 months will be definitely a roadblock or a speed breaker. So with a leeway I think it should be provided for.
It should have been.
It should have been. Okay, next coming to the much talked about cess issue. What are your views that cess has been taken out, the education cess has been taken out?
Again, it was said that with a view to go to the DST regime, I am subsuming the education cess into the basic excise duty. That is what the finance minister has said. If that is the case, he should have completely abolished it. Only an exemption notification has been issued, which gives us a fear at any point of time it may come back. And again, we are talking about the exemption for education cess as far as the excise front. Service tax, it is yet to come. Maybe once the act is passed, it will come into fact. But once your aim is to subsume all the taxes, why at all there should be a Swachh Bharat cess? Again, we are going to a cess, we are falling into the trap of the cess. How are we going to subsume all these things in another hardly 1 year? And on customs, nothing has been done. The education cess continues to be payable on customs. So here again we see a mismatch between what is being talked about and what is being done.
Very correct. In fact, as you rightly said, a step towards GST, I feel it has been taken only by increasing the rate of service tax.
Of course, this may be a clever move by the finance minister.
Yes, because today in excise we have as excise duty of 12.36% and the VAT around 14.5 or 5%, whatever as the case may be. So there are two parallel levies right now operating which will subsume into a single GST which should be a CGST. But as on date, state government is not levying the services. Once GST comes into play, then states are also going to levy. So now we are into a taste of only 12.36 on service tax. Once GST comes into play, services will also get into a 25 or 22 bracket. So maybe this 14% upping
this is certainly a move towards GST in the budget. Maybe the only move.
Making the exchequer, the kitty also very wealthy, very true. Both of us are in agreement that this budget has no roadmap towards the GST which is expected in 2016. That apart, we will now move towards some of the exemptions which are being withdrawn, predominantly in the construction sector. And also, this budget has tried to overcome some of the some of the judicial pronouncements. We will have a discussion on that. Trajan, some of the exemptions on the mega exemption, predominantly in the construction sector, has been withdrawn. What do you think the reason behind this? Definitely this has nothing to do with the GST. And what would be the intention behind withdrawal of such construction? Because nothing has been spelled out either in the TRU letter nor by the finance minister in his speech.
Yeah, it's really shocking. If you see some of the exemptions which has been withdrawn, that's all relating to government. That is building for a government office construction, a staff quarters for a government. So these are all the exemptions which are available. Ultimately, if you put them to tax, it is the government which is going to pay the tax. It is just taking from this pocket and putting it in this pocket. I don't really understand what is the logic behind the withdrawal of these exemptions, especially when the service is going to be provided to government. So it will be a great shock for the construction industry. And another thing, the exemption for airport and port development, that has also been withdrawn, while retaining it for railway. That of course has a logic. Railway is predominantly government, so they retain the exemption. Nowadays airport and port development is by and large privatized. The role of the government is very minimized. So they want to tax, let it be. But what is the logic behind drawing the exemption for the construction of building for government, construction of stock quarters for government? That is really, I don't understand. What is the reason behind it?
Leave alone is a government or a private sector. When the thrust of this entire budget is on the infrastructure, and so much is being talked about the infrastructure development and funds on that, I feel it is, I don't have any clue why this withdrawal of exemption, that too on the construction, which directly into the infrastructure.
Definitely, if you see the interview given by the CREDAI chairman, they have been lamenting about nothing has been done for the realty sector. They have been hoping for a lot of positive measures, but unfortunately this has come as a shock. Lot of government projects are going on in many places, so all those things will be hit.
Likewise, this budget has also brought in a few amendments, very fortunately prospective amendments, by trying to overpower or trying to overcome some of the very important judicial pronouncements. Take for example the reimbursements. The value will not include reimbursement was held by the Delhi High Court. Now they have brought in an amendment towards that. Likewise, chit funds which was held out of the service tax net has been brought into the levy. But one heartening factor is that it is really prospective. Unlike we saw that in the earlier budgets, that there was always a retrospective amendment. But notwithstanding that, do you agree with the proposed amendment that very particularly on the reimbursement, whether reimbursement would constitute a value or not in terms of the service tax? What is your take on that?
They have now given the statutory backing to Rule 5 of the valuation rules, which the Delhi High Court said the statute does not provide for it, you cannot make it by way of a rule. Now they are trying to give a statutory backing for Rule 5. But if you really look at Rule 5, is it justified? If you see, during the course of providing the service, lot of expenditures are done. If you go back to the history behind it, there has been a tendency on the part of the taxpayers to claim everything as reimbursement of expenses and reduce their charges. So there were board circulars in 95, 96, 97 and all, saying that reimbursement is not at all liable to service tax. People started misusing it, started claiming everything by way of reimbursement. That reimbursement may be even more than actuals. So the government was losing out on the revenue. They wanted to pluck it, but they went a little far ahead than what is required. They brought in Rule 5, a concept of pure agent, which really practically it is very difficult to satisfy the conditions of pure agent in all the cases. But they went several steps ahead instead of what is required, requiring the intervention by the Delhi High Court. After the Delhi High Court has said, we have been waiting year after year, certainly the amendment will come, and it has come in 2015. So it is long due, which has come. But if you see that, not all reimbursements can be subjected to the levy of service tax. The basic principle is I should pay tax on my income. What is to my benefit? On that I am liable to pay the tax. During the course, if I incur some expenditure and I get it reimbursed from my client, then that is not going to enrich me in any way.
For example, if you are engaged in Bombay High Court, there would be an air travel. Either you can book your tickets and you can claim as a reimbursement, or you can ask the client to book for yourself. Now it leads to a dual situation where if he books it is out of the service tax value, and if you are going to book it, it comes into that taxable value. So what could be the distinction between reimbursement?
What they should have done is, instead of merely giving a statutory backing to the Rule 5, They should have really gone deep into the issue. The criteria should have been, if you charge more than what you incur, then that margin is liable to tax.
It would be a wonderful proposition.
That should have been a better way of doing it, but rather they want to go much into that. What was lacking, they provided.
Now, after the negative list, almost everything under the planet is on service tax. Even if you incur to that extent or to that value, you will be entitled for the SENVAT credit. So, as you rightly said, if the topped up value or the incremental value alone is subjected to service tax, then it would be a very reasonable proposition.
One good way is that hopefully they have not done it retrospectively.
That is right. But do you, coming to retrospective action, do you feel that this prospective action will sanctify the previous period, and does it mean that previous reimbursements based on the Delhi High Court are all justified and will not be opened?
I hope so, because the Delhi judgment provides, unless it is set aside by some higher appellate forum, it provides. So for all the past period, we should get the benefit of the Delhi High Court judgment.
One last thing. What do you feel that there is something in this budget for the common man?
If you see from indirect tax front, with which we are very much concerned, I don't see anything which will benefit the common man. There is no change in the excise rate of duties. In fact, there is a marginal hike of 0.14%. The service tax hike is definitely going to come on, because after negative list, from morning to evening, you happen to receive and consume so many services, knowingly or unknowingly. So that will definitely cast a burden on the common man. So from indirect tax point of view, I don't think that this is an Aam Aadmi budget.
Fine. So both of us agree that this budget is not an Aam Aadmi budget, nor there is any roadmap to the ensuing GST in 2016. Today, fresh from the oven, once the budget is over, for the first time, the Indirect Tax Bar Association of Chennai, along with the Revenue Bar Association of Chennai, organized a critical analysis meet wherein Natarajan was also a speaker. For the benefit of the netizens, we will be running through a small capsule of the event, which is followed by interviews from legal luminaries like Mr. N. Venkatraman, Senior Advocate, Mr. S. Mahalingam, a former CFO of TCS and also a TARC member, and Mr. S. Rajaratnam, who was a former ITAT member. Natarajan interviewed them with his pertinent questions, which followed with very vital and pertinent answers. Let us get into that.